always there and stand by.
Morning, everybody, and people online. Sorry for the late start. We were held up in a workshop. For a start, I'll say the prayer. Almighty and ever-living God, in whose hands and are the rights and hopes of all people, look graciously on us who govern. Guide us that our counsels may be wise and our decisions just. Amen. Right, I'd call for apologies. I've got one apology, Francois. Other apologies. Can I have a mover for that, please?
Yep.
So it's moved by Peter, second Brett. Declarations of interest. Public forum, petitions and deputations. There are none. So confirmation of the minutes. It's recommended that the committee to resolve confirm the minutes of the Corporate Service Committee meeting held on the 22nd of July are true and a correct record. Are there any amendments to those minutes? So moved by Brett, seconded by Chris.
Aye.
So we'll just change the agenda around a bit. We've got Tom online. So we'll, instead of going to the actions list, we'll go straight to Tom. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Look, my apologies once again. I'm in the car, but it was the scheduling. So anyway, I'm just as good on the phone.
Good.
Have you, Peter, have you got my slides? Have they been distributed or do you want to put them up?
Yeah.
I've got the slide distributed and I've got them up on the screen.
Yep.
Look,
two copies.
Okay, look, I'm just happy to talk to them, or if you want to put them on the screen, whatever suits you, Chair.
Yep, no, we put them on the screen to be fine. Thanks, Tom.
Okay. But if you can just go to page, can you go to page 2 of those slides? It's the performance update.
Yep.
Yep, slides up.
You got that? Okay, great. So look, what I thought I'd do today is just really talk you through the performance of where we've been, and you know where we're seeing the next 6 to 12 months, and you know, in anything particular, you know, for the West Coast Regional Council portfolio that we see as a potential, you know, thorn in the side going forward. So I guess first thing to note is that the performance for the last financial year was very solid at 9.41%. And for the start of this financial year, so the sort of 6 weeks that we're into it, the portfolio is up another 3.1%, or in dollar terms, about 460,000. So that was as of last Friday. So like it's been a solid start to the year. What's doing well? You know, equities across the board are doing well, but it continues to be really led by the offshore equities, continuing to have a very strong run at the moment. So that's where we're getting the bulk of the gains. And if we and that's important given it's a reasonable weighting in the portfolio. I think there's that last bullet point. I think I might have raised this last time, but you know, the amount of market movement we had this year, so that huge fall we had in markets and you know, the first couple of weeks in April after Trump announced the tariffs, I continue to mention this, that, you know, news headlines can often feel more severe than their actual impact on the portfolio. So it's a really important reminder that you've got a SIPO, you stick to the asset allocation, and that's what gets us through those tough times. And by staying invested, and in fact, we're slightly overweight, as I'll come to, that's proved to be good for the portfolio. So, Peter, if you can just go to page 3, please, which is portfolio positioning.
Yep.
So what this table is really just showing is that you've got currently we're slightly overweight growth assets. So as a reminder, the SIPO benchmark weighting is 50-50, so 50% growth assets, 50% income or cash and fixed interest. We're currently at about 52.5% growth assets, so we're slightly overweight. And that's at the expense of a little bit underweight cash and a bit underweight bonds. So obviously our cash rate is currently 3.25%, and it's going to be 3% after 2 o'clock tomorrow, and we think sort of heading lower. You know, I think they should do another. You know, we could easily see it down at 2.5%. And that's why, we're happy to be slightly overweight growth assets than income assets at the moment, because we're not getting paid to hold cash compared to, say, 3 years ago when the cash rate was at, we were getting 6% to hold money on cash. We were getting paid to sit on cash. Right now, there's that same risk reward isn't quite there.
Just one question, Tom.
Chair, do you want me to
One question, Tom?
What's that?
One question. What's the talk on the street as far as tomorrow?
The talk on the street tomorrow is that he's definitely going to cut interest rates to 3%. He won't go any more than that tomorrow, but they will definitely cut rates tomorrow.
Okay.
In fact, I'm just trying to see if there's a chart coming up. We'll just come to it as I go. But talk on the street is definitely 3%. That's fully baked in.
Right.
And it's more about what they say, how they think, those sort of forward-looking indicators that they look at are shown as to trying to guide to whether they think there'll be one more cut or two more cuts. So the market's sort of split at the moment between, do we end up at 275 or 250? And definitely in the cities, in the urban areas, things aren't great at the moment. I think in the provinces, I think things probably than they do in the urban environment at the moment. So I think they should continue to cut interest rates.
Okay.
So we can go into page 4, which is just sort of focus more on some of the New Zealand slides this month. And I think key there is, as we said in that headline at the top, we are seeing a recovery underway, but it's patchy and it's sputtering. So we keep getting bits of good news flow, and then we get bad news flow after that. So I think that the economy's growing at sort of 2.6%. What's that like? Look, it's not bad, but it's very much skewed towards the rural region at the moment. And I think you're still seeing a lot of these mortgages are still on fixed terms or higher fixed terms. So 7s and 8s rolling off. And that's why I think interest rates will continue to go lower, because we need a sustained period of lower interest rates to get some of those fixed term mortgages reset at a lower one. You've definitely seen spare capacity. So if you talk to people employing, say, a year ago, there might have been 10 applicants for one job. Now, some people are struggling. Now there's, 20 applicants for that one job. So there's definitely a bit of, capacity, and that's where you're seeing those unemployment rates start to creep up. I think that's something, those are one of the indicators that the Reserve Bank will look at. Even though that inflation between 1% and 3% is their key band, they still look at other things in the economy. So, that last bullet point is, I think, quite salient, that in our view, the economic recovery is not yet entrenched in New Zealand. The sort of the fragile global outlook doesn't necessarily help us with the still uncertainty over our tariff with the US. And I think, economic growth is probably going to not get any better than it is now. So that's that chart, the bottom right of page 4. We're still we're just starting to show some growth from the trough, but it's still not looking, completely positive. So I think people just need to get a bit more certainty. I didn't go to there was a governance thing in Auckland last Monday night with about 250, company directors and CEOs and CFOs in the room. And by all accounts, there's an overall feeling of pessimism in the room. And I think, that can start to feed on each other. So when someone gets pessimistic, everyone gets pessimistic. And I think, at some point, you just got to sort of roll your sleeves up and get on with whatever industry you've got to try to make things better. But definitely in Auckland in particular, the sentiment is more negative than positive at the moment. Maybe I'll just ask you guys now, what's the feeling like on the coast right now?
I would say that it's probably more positive than Auckland.
Yeah.
Particularly in the mining sector. And in the exploration sector.
Yep.
Tourism, it's not the time of the year to be talking about that. But I think overall it'd be more optimistic than Auckland.
Yep. Well, it certainly helps with the price of gold where it's gone. It's it feels like gold's certainly got a floor here and is likely to go. I would say we think it's going to go higher rather than lower from this juncture.
Yeah, and it's sort of stayed quite steady. It hasn't done any big sharp peaks or troughs, so it's stayed quite steady climb, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Councillor Campbell wanted to comment on the dairying sector here on the coast.
Yeah, farming's looking quite promising at the moment. So
Been to record
can't hear you guys particularly well. Is there a microphone or?
Record payout in the dairy industry.
farming's looking quite good at the moment. Beef price is good. There's not many sheep left on the west coast, I don't think, but looking all right. Great prices. Yeah.
So overall, pretty optimistic, I would say.
I think also the changes in the building codes and structure is going to help a bit with get the building thing going again. Like people are putting up sheds now where they couldn't before and that sort of stuff. I think the government's on track there for. It's going to help a lot, I reckon. Portable homes and all that sort of stuff that people can put on place there.
Exactly. Makes it affordable.
And I think people want to come here, don't they?
Yep.
Affordable.
Yep. Any other questions from Tom? You got some more news to share, Tom, or is that pretty much it, isn't it, really?
Sorry, it's quite hard to hear you all. Is there it's probably my phone.
Might be your car.
Yeah, it might be my car.
Be your
sorry.
car. Yeah.
Anyway,
everyone else can hear us.
Shall I keep going?
Yep. We've got another 5 minutes for you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so look, I'll just go on to slide 5, which it's just about the RBNZ and the OCR, because I think it's kind of important where interest rates go, because I think most of us prefer low interest rates if you're in a growth mode and you're trying to borrow money to go and do things. And so I guess that last bullet point's kind of the key one here, that we think the path of least regret is for the RBNZ to keep delivering stimulus, i.e. cutting interest rates at a time when you've got restrictive fiscal policy going on makes sense. I think their biggest factor they look at is the risk of an inflation scare. And I just think at the moment with unemployment creeping up, it's hard to see inflation getting away again. Although, speaking to construction people, it does sound as though it's like, everyone was saying construction costs are getting cheaper. I'm not sure that's actually the case. I think, materials are still relatively expensive, but in general, inflation's back under control from where it was at, 7 to 8%, only, 2 or 3 years ago. So it's back within the RBNZ's band. So I think that they should continue to cut interest rates just to stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
I think just on to slide 6 there, Peter, please. I guess all this, I guess the most important sort of chart here is to show the bottom right one just shows the valuation of the NZX 50 over the last 20 years. And it's really just showing that based on our valuation metrics, the New Zealand market's certainly not expensive. And, if I'm brutally honest, I think the NZX 50's underperformed over the last, 4 to 5 years. So we'd expect, a better outcome from our local market going forward, particularly as the economy starts to pick up. There's always that lag effect. And, some of those exporters in the ag-linked names have done well, but it's quite hard to necessarily find those on the listed market. They tend to invest unlisted. And so it's the point of these charts is that I think there's going to be better relative performance for the local market over the next 6 to 12 months than there has been over the past couple of years.
That's good.
I'll just touch briefly on page 7, just on global trade. Look, I mean, it's hard to know what Trump's up to with trade. You know, everyone I speak to says that, you know, that we can live with the sort of current tariff that he is proposing for us, but he just shoots from the hip so much he could do something else, you know, relatively draconian at short measure. I guess to put it in perspective, what they'll collect the US from tariffs, forecast tariffs, is about 300 billion, which, to put it in context, is more than our New Zealand's annual GDP. So it's a it's a massive number. But I think from an NZ Inc. point of view, what it's currently scheduled by is probably not a bad scenario. And just the final one I'll touch on is perhaps, I got some conscious of time, is if I just go to slide 12, please, Peter, which is, valuations, because I get a lot of people saying to me, valuations of the equity market, US in particular, are sort of elevated. And if you look at that top right-hand chart, which, shows the valuation of the S&P 500x the Magnificent Seven, so those 7 tech names that have done really well, then it's actually not, horrendous. And if you think how the composition of global markets has changed hugely over the last 10 years with the rise of tech, and, we just don't know where AI is going to end up in our daily lives, but there's no doubt it's going to be more than it is now in 10 years' time, then, you can argue that the valuation some of these are actually not excessive. So I guess I say this because it shows that, we want to remain invested in growth assets, particularly given the other option is to sit in cash at 3% or bonds at 4%. We think the risk reward is still very much favours being invested in growth assets, i.e. equities, particularly given that we've got a long-term time horizon for the regional council money. So I might just pause there and see if there's any questions.
No, not from me, Tom. You've explained it pretty well, to be fair. Peter Head.
Yeah, Tom, my concern's always been the global equities and the US market, and I know the US debt crossed over 38 trillion. I read on the weekend, and the interest alone crossed the $1 trillion threshold. Which is a massive amount. So it's my concern's always been about those global equities. Our position there. But I note in here, you've just covered that a wee bit. But do you think we're weighted a bit heavy on that?
Look, short answer is no. I mean, look, I agree. US has got a big debt problem, but we've actually got a big debt problem here as well. So the US isn't the only company that. What's that?
Just noting the media in the last couple of days, Tom, about New Zealand's debt position forecasted to reach, break the trillion in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So I think when you talk about debt, all of this debt is not like the GFC when it's private debt. So all the debt is owned essentially by the state. So corporate balance sheets and private balance sheets are in good position in the US. So it's all sort of federal debt, if you like. But there's no doubt that they are running a massive deficit. As I said, we are here in New Zealand as well. But I think around the world, and I think where do you want to be positioned? From an overall risk-adjusted perspective, you're based on the coast. I think it's important to get some exposure to some of these big tech names globally. And the only way to do it really is via investing via the US. And as those slides say, that the US equity market isn't horrendously expensive. And I think for the diversification it gives you by investing in those markets, it outweighs any issues about the US, fiscal position.
Thanks. Any more questions from Tom? Thanks very much, Tom. The recommendation is to the committee to resolve and receive the report and note the attachments. Can I have a mover for that, please?
Happy to second. Brett moved.
Brett moved, Peter second. So we'll just change. All in favour? Yep. So we'll change it up a bit more. Thanks very much, Tom.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. And we'll bring in Miles. So we'll go to 8.2. Morning, Miles.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So you're going to give us an update?
Yes. So going through the report, you've got a copy of that, have you, or is that going to be up on a screen?
Yeah, on the screen shortly.
Sorry, Peter, throwing you under the bus. It's all right. Got it here. Is it a pull out going? Yeah.
Okay. So
We're on page 2, economic commentary.
8.3. Yep.
So I think when I was there last, I actually mentioned that quote at the beginning about Vladimir Lenin. Things have actually, on the financial markets and the equity markets, things have sort of calmed down a wee bit, actually. We're not having the extreme volatility that we had. We're not having the extreme volatility we had at the beginning of the quarter, I should say, because that's when I mentioned that the US 10-year Treasury bond got down to 386 on the 7th of April. 2 days later, it was at 451. And at the end of the quarter, it was 423. So that was the end of June. Now it's only 434. So while the volatility that we saw just immediately after the Liberation Day tariffs were announced was extreme and very extreme, it seems to have slowed down a little bit. Well, the volatility has negated quite a bit. And the US 10-year Treasury bond yield, which is the global benchmark for long-term interest rates, is it's basically in a range between 420 and 450. And it seems to have sort of held that range for the last sort of 6 weeks or so. Not sure what's going to break it out of that at the moment. It just seems that investors are happy to buy that 10-year bond round about 450, and at 420 they're happy to sell it. So as I say, there's a period of relative stability. I mean, the markets don't seem to be, and while this is a 30 June report, I mean, if you like, I can just explain that at the moment, we've obviously got the White House meeting on at the moment. I don't think that'll move the markets too much. Whether or not there's going to be a deal done, I'm not sure. They said that there could well be. But I don't think it'll have any effect on the long-term rates. I think probably what's changed a little bit since the report, and I do note that the New Zealand economy expanded by 0.8% in the March quarter. But for the June quarter GDP, where the expectations are that it will actually be another negative quarter. And I've been traveling around the country a wee bit lately, and I'm just sort of getting the feeling that this so-called economic recovery, economic revival is being pushed out, because the saying was in 24, survive till 25. Now the saying is survive through 25. If you're in, agriculture is doing well, and a lot of that is dairying, but I mean, beef and lamb prices are up as well. Tourism in certain sectors is in certain geographical areas is doing well. And, you look at Southern Lakes, I'm not sure how the West Coast is going, but from what I hear, there are more and more visitors going to the West Coast. And we've got a sort of a heat map of how the New Zealand economy is going, and the further south you go, the better it gets. And the area that's showing the greatest recovery is Southland. And that often is a bit of an early indicator that the economy will improve. So there are one or two green shoots, but construction is still in the doldrums. We've got record levels of net migration, so people leaving New Zealand to go and live overseas. And we've got record youth unemployment. and especially in Auckland, I mean, unemployment is particularly bad. But as I say, it's sort of almost a two-speed economy. The North Island and the South Island, or the South Island sort of south of Christchurch, is doing quite well.
And west of Crook.
When we wrote the report, it was interesting to see that the markets are projecting a 3% OCR. So the OCR would bottom out at 3%, and that would be in November 25. That has changed now with this sort of extended slowdown, and the markets are now projecting a 96% chance actually that the RBNZ will cut by 25 points tomorrow, because the next meeting is tomorrow. And so, I mean, basically it's 100%, but they're now projecting a low of 275 in either February or April of next year, which is just indicative of the fact that the rates, that the economy is continuing to struggle, and it will have to be met with a monetary policy response in the form of the lower OCR. And the swap rates that I mentioned that are detailed here, or the rates going out to from the OCR right out 10 years, they've all fallen from the levels that we saw at the end of June. And New Zealand rates have actually fallen a little bit more than the US rates. And I just think that's indicative of the fact that the New Zealand economy is struggling to recover. Sorry, I mentioned construction's not good, but retail is awful at the moment. I mean, we have clients who have shopping malls, and they just say that it's extremely difficult. So yeah, I hope I don't sound too pessimistic, but I just think that, we're still in for a few months of volatility. Just one thing I thought you might be interested in. I just heard the end of the JB Were presentation, and you're talking about debt, the US debt. How they actually look at debt is as a percentage of GDP, so as gross domestic product, and New Zealand is about 47% of debt to GDP is 47%, whereas the US is at 120%. That obviously sounds very good from a New Zealand perspective. The only problem with New Zealand is that we have very high private sector debt as well. So, and that's our obsession with housing and the need to own your own house and have mortgage financing as a result of it. So I just thought that sort of puts it into context a little bit. But if your economy is growing, I mean, it's really, the headline number is scary. And with the US debt, the markets are actually, and one of the things that's holding the US 10-year Treasury bond yield up is the amount of US debt issuance that's coming up. And as someone said, the debt to GDP, the total debt is 37 trillion. So the markets it is weighing on the markets, the amount of debt that's going to have to be issued. And as someone pointed out, there's about $1 trillion it's going to cost the US in interest a year. It's actually beaten defence spending. So that's sort of my little take on the economy. Are there any questions on that?
Not from me. Is there any other questions? No. Should we go through to West Coast Regional Council funding?
Yep, on to the next page.
Page 24, is it? Or you want to go?
It's just the next page.
Okay.
No.
There's not too much to report here. I mean, there's where the graph on the top left is the funding maturity profile. So you are below the limit, and that limit is where you see in 2026 that it's sort of getting up to that 8 million and closer to the limit. That does include the bank funding. I mean, whether or not you include bank funding in that, because that's the bank facility that you have of 2.5 million, but it's sort of a moot point whether or not you put it in, because you don't have any debt drawn from the bank facility. So you could look at this graph in one of two ways. I've looked at it in the most conservative way, just showing that with the bank facility in, but we've got a range of maturities, but not going out too much out past 28, 29. And we've just got more funding actually since the end of the quarter for 3 million, which was required. So the debt actually now is 27.15 million. But looking at going back to the 30 June number, your liquidity ratio is very positive, 190.6%. That does include the value of the managed funds. which you're allowed to include in the liquidity. It has to be greater than 110%. So you're well within that. The policy compliance, you're complying with all aspects of the policy, and I'll look at the fixed rate hedging percentages later on in the next slide, but your cost of funds also is 425, so that is coming down as well. And with the OCR continuing to fall, or actually maybe we go through to the next page.
Yeah.
Sorry, Miles, just before you do, I wonder if I could make a comment here. So look, I know that many councillors know this, but we need to state it. The increase in debt that this council is experiencing is planned, expected, and anticipated and known.
Or budgeted for.
It is all budgeted for. And it is a significantly driven by the investment in our flood schemes.
Yep.
And meeting the local share. So particularly from a media perspective, this is all budgeted, all known, and has been through community consultation and has been endorsed. Okay,
Correct.
As why this is happening. It is not unexpected and unplanned. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the previous slide?
Yeah.
So on this slide, the important one is the well, they're all important, but I mean the top left graph just shows that you are policy compliant from the amount of fixed rate debt that you've got. You're above the policy minimums, and you're below the policy maximums. Now, with actually the increase in the 3 million of debt, which we get tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow, there will be a very slight policy breach, which we will rectify before the end of the quarter with a further interest rate swap. So it's minuscule, but as I say, we haven't even got the debt yet, so we haven't remedied it, and but we will look to do that. The interest cost graph also is important to you, and you can see that it's just above that 4%. Just it goes up a little bit, but not dramatically so. And considering that the OCR, you can see that the OCR is the 90-day bank bill rate is the bottom line, sort of the mustardy coloured line. That goes up, but your cost of funds doesn't go up so much. That's because, you know, we have taken out some reasonably good swaps, and there is debt rolling off, which is at a higher rate. So again, there's just another another statement here. The fixed rate hedging bands, you're all policy compliant with them. The next slide.
Yep.
Sorry, question?
No, you're good.
Go. No, question.
That's your funding maturity profile. So that just outlines each individual tranche of funding that you've got. And the next slide is just what you can borrow from the LGFA Act. So just one thing I should mention, that projected cost of funds is probably lowered now, because since the end of the quarter, there is an expectation that interest rates will go lower than what was expected at the end of the quarter. So that blue line which showed you projection will actually track a bit lower, so it will lead to lower interest rates. So I think I've taken up my time, have I?
No.
Yeah, you look right up in the end of the slide pack. Perfect.
You're on track.
I thought the bell was telling me.
No.
The bell that went off.
No. Not in this room.
Oh. So that's the end of the presentation. I mean, it's a pretty boring presentation, and there's nothing dramatic to mention, but I mean, everything's tracking as it should be. I'm happy with the outcome that we've got, and that we have left the hedging of extra debt to this point when interest rates are pretty much towards their lows that we've seen in the last few months. They've gone up about 10 points. Oh, it's nice, 6 or 7 points in the last 5 days or so. But as I say, we will rectify that before the end of the quarter. So no, that's the report.
Thanks, Miles. And actually, in this case, boring is good.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
So recommendation is that the committee to resolve and receive the report, the attachments, the following activity in the LGFA, the 3 million LGFA commercial paper debt was matured on the 30th of July 25 and was rolled over to 30th of October 25. Can I have a mover for that, please? Peter Ewan, Andy Campbell.
Can I just comment?
Yep.
Chair, I just want to reiterate what Daryl says at this particular time of the triennium. There'll be people trying to say, look what's happened to the West Coast regional debt. But like Daryl said, it's planned. We are borrowing on behalf of our rating districts for our protection schemes up and down the coast. So that's how it works out, So I think this is really healthy, and also given that our investment portfolio is almost at $15 million, so that's really a good point. So when you look at the debt, that was planned for, as Daryl said, because we are borrowing on behalf of those rating schemes.
And we've got, I think, massive infrastructure projects.
Yep.
I've got more headroom than a giraffe.
Thanks very much, Miles. Much
Just one
appreciated.
question. Sorry, Peter, I'm
Yep.
just not sure. What's the debt to GDP? So what am I saying? Debt as a percentage of revenue, do you know, at the end of the 30 June?
No, I don't have that off the top of my head.
It's maybe we should put that in the report. It's just one of the one of the 3 LGFA covenants. The only comment I make about the debt is that, I mean, all local authorities are facing an increase in their debt levels. So you're not alone there. And as you point out, though, it's totally planned for. It's needed. It's required. And as long as you've got the debt servicing capability, which you have, because you're well within your covenants, both the debt to revenue covenants and the interest ratio, interest as a percentage of debt, interest as a percentage of total revenue, and interest as a percentage of rates revenue, then you're well within it. So, I mean, there's no alarm bells that ring for me at all whatsoever there.
No, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I could just comment on that. My mind and what I sort of think about it is from a local government perspective, is healthy debt and unhealthy debt. Healthy debt is debt that's planned for, goes to capital infrastructure, and the debt is a way of smoothing the payback from the community across generations, so that people today don't have to pay the full cost of these very, very long-lived assets. And that's right the proper way of actually funding long-lived assets like what we build with our flood schemes. Unhealthy debt is where some local government are funding operating expenses, so not capital infrastructure costs, operating expenses from debt. That is incredibly unhealthy debt, right? And our financial strategy across our LTP is addressing that. Thank you.
Andy.
Just some of this debt should save us like $200 million worth of damage in the next big flood in Westport, shouldn't it? What?
Great. Right, good. All right, thank you very much, Miles.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Yep, over and out. Thank you.
Cheers.
So-
I want to make a comment there that I think it's really good that our investment portfolio is making such good profit,
Don't flog my cheese report.
and the debt borrowing money is so cheap. People always say to you, "Why do you got this investment portfolio? You're borrowing, obviously you're making better money than it's costing you." So
Yep,
it's
hang on.
really important.
9% last year.
5%.
Yeah, pretty good, isn't it?
$1 million.
No cheese report there. Anyway, moving on to item 6, action list. It's a recommendation that the committee receive the action list and the information noted. Go on to action number 1, complete car park improvements in West Coast Regional Council building. It's ongoing. Action 2, advise mayors, chairs and joint committee members regarding repayment requirements for any catastrophe fund, including any funds in excess of the $1 million threshold.
All right.
Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, so that's ongoing. Action number 3, present the second property report detailing updated quotes, providing work, the car park, Loop Road, for current lease status of the council-owned land across the West Coast Regional Council. Ongoing. Action 4, prepare a report for council giving a detailed breakdown of the allocation of funds received from the sale of council-owned land, assets and buildings. Ross.
An update on that. So basically that's part of our annual report requirement anyway, because we'll be wrapping that up as part of the sale. The view that we've got on the moment is you'll end up that we'll have sold the property for a very similar amount to what it was valued at in the books. So we obviously get a valuation every couple of years, and the valuation in the books was about 2.2 million, and we would have sold it for just shy of that. When we consider we had a
There's no tax implications. Thank you, Peter. No, I appreciate that. So that's the action list. Can I please have a mover for the action list? No, I didn't.
Not yet.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Peter. Do you want to go away? Right, we are now. Jump and show that up. Where is it? Right, cheers. It's a recommendation that the committee resolves and receives a chair's report. Right, I'll give one there. Chair's report. We have elections coming up, and it's my hopes and concerns that we get the right candidates for the West Coast Regional Council to be councillors going forward for the betterment of the West Coast. And another item, which has pretty much been stolen because we've had the investment portfolio, is that we're in a good shape, considering the overview of the global economic times that we're in. So yeah, we're well above the 8 ball. So that's cheers. Can I please have a move? Andy, Peter, all those say aye. Right, we go on to section 8, which is Lagoma summary information request. Who's talking to that? Yep. Recommendation that committee to resolve and receive report and note request for information received under Local Government Official Informations Act, Meeting Act 1980. Right, I'll get you to talk to that. Yeah.
This is the stage keeping on with the request. We were doing the process within the statutory time frames. One didn't meet the time frame.
Like the Stuart upstairs, isn't it?
Adam?
You know, it's Stuart
I
upstairs.
know, we already did, because,
Once again, you just pick that by one.
yeah, which we'd already failed anyway, because I think we failed on his. Yes.
Yeah.
We'd already made one set.
So councillors, if I could comment, firstly, you know, with these very tight bus rules around our KPIs, we've got an opportunity to revisit that to see if you want to make it 95% rather than 100% of something, you know, going into next year in the LTP revision. But look, not so worried about that really. The comment that I make, and I think we make that every quarter of this, is council don't underestimate the amount of staff time that these are in this thing. It is huge. And the number of them, while it's a lot higher than probably it ever has been, and that's right across the government, is no indication that the increase in number is no indication of time. And inside even that 37 or whatever it is, there's some massive amounts of work.
Yes.
That takes hours and hours of start time. We do where we can try and recruit through charging where that's appropriate, but the rules of the Lagoimas with the ombudsman mean that we can't always do that. But it is a part of the transparency of being a public body that we're subject to that, and this mirrors what central government have with official information requests, OIAs. The Lagoimas are exactly the same, it's just a different name for the local government. it is an ever increasing and concerning amount of time that we put into this, but is again part of transparency. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Question, do you get like rescinded funds?
Yes.
People who just,
Yes.
and there's nothing you can do about it?
Not really. Again, if we think that we can charge, but really in the legislation, if I could use these terms, frivolous and vexatious, recidivist, we're still going to meet the requests.
Yeah, through the chair, I can actually see that that's actually a full-time job for someone, you know, and we've been criticised for having too many staff, but here we go, we're getting 13 or 14 a month, you know, it's a massive amount of on that 3-month period, 39, you know, it's a lot of work. And just looking through them, I can actually see that they're probably, some of those are coming from the same people, you know, all the time. You can actually just read it like a book, you know, and obviously they're the same people, just, you know, but it comes at a cost to the ratepayers. You know?
Yep.
The trouble is, you've got to get it right too, because you
Yep.
just try and say, oh, I think I know about this one, and just do it offhand. You
Some of the information also that's being asked is a huge amount of work.
For sure.
I'd rather staff than me doing it, that's for sure.
One of the things, councillors, that we put our minds to with these Lagoimas is Privacy Act. And and have to be very, very careful and meticulous about your redactions, that you're not releasing private information of either staff or other community members, iwi and those sorts of things, and phone numbers and all those sorts of things. Yeah, and that's something that we pay a lot of attention to.
That's great. Is there any more questions on that? Can I have
This one was
Oh,
pretty much all done in house now. You said last time only the tricky ones went off.
The complex ones have still been done by a contractor, yeah, especially when you're talking about huge amounts of material, yep.
Just one to refresh my memory, and Daryl might be able to help us here. It's regarding page 12, third from the bottom, regarding the role of a harbour master. Who has it presently, and it's charged, the charge of the service, the activity is to whom? Because it has gone past the parcel, as I say. You know,
Yeah, thank you. This is the legal position. Statutorily, if I start with Greyport, statutorily, because of the type of ships, boats rather than ships, and tonnage and those sorts of things that come to that board, we have no statutory responsibility at all in law to have a harbour master. Okay, and hence we do not. I would make the comment that people should not get confused between a harbour master and a port manager. They're entirely different things. Port manager is a commercial manager of port. Harbour master is a regulator around movements of ships and safety and those sorts of things. When it comes to Westport, the Buller District Council have appointed a harbour master, and they did that preemptively, but they probably need one with the barge, you know, when it starts going again. And we have formally delegated our authority for harbour master to Buller officially, and that's been in place for quite some time. There's a third role for harbour master, which is not associated with commercial shipping and activities in ports, and that's recreational boating, and that could be on the lakes, inland, etc., Brunner, etc., etc. Once again, there is no statutory responsibility that you have to appoint a harbour master to oversee that, but we've had some recent communication with Community and Maritime New Zealand, which is highlighting some concerns from the community around the extent and amount of boating, particularly at Brunner, with speedboats, jet skis, kayakers, swimmers, fishers, you know, all those things, without any sort of uplifted areas or buoys and those sorts of things. And those conversations are continuing. The three, a number of regional council, Grey and and Buller District Councils. I met with the CEOs on this matter just last week, and we'll probably bring you back some advice on that going forward, as well as some conversations that are going on with NNZ. So we're thinking about this, and bring something back. I hope that answers the question.
Just a follow-up question to that. Thanks, Dale. In relation to the cost and who it falls with the port management or Greymouth, I ask the question because we've all noticed the big influx of outside people coming in, chasing the tuna and the swordfish and all the rest, and there's been dozens and dozens of boats. So who's the actual port manager then that's employed by the Grey District Council?
Okay, so the port manager is employed by Grey District Council, and Grey District Council also fund the lights and any other markers and things associated with that, with the Grey Port. Again, that's part of the conversation we're having with Grey District Council. But for a very, very long time now, that's been administered by the port manager. And I understand that there is a fee that Grey District Council take every time someone crosses the entrance. Maybe Councillor Hammett might be able to comment on that.
That's clarified, because it's just a concern I had with the number of fair weather boaties that go from stores of painting, fishing on the other side, and they come to ours and they come back and we've got a bar harbour. Some of them will be a bit awestruck if they were in the wrong position and the wrong weather. I just want to know where the responsibility fell for the management of the Lewis Bar. Good.
You? No, Peter Thomas. I was just going to say about the amount of boats, these big boats that are out there. And they're out there, yeah. But we still haven't got a rescue boat, have we? No. Greymouth is still
Total problem.
Yeah. Through the chair, if we could just comment on Daryl's comments about Lake Brunner. In the past, about 20 years plus ago, Lake Brunner was had honorary launch wardens that were appointed by Ministry of MSA or whatever, the Marine group. So they had and they had a right to actually fine people for, you know, speeding or doing, you know, events there they're not meant to be doing, you know, from 200 metres to the shore, you know, and the likes, and they had a fatal and a whole lot. So that could be something that could be investigated rather, you know, in the future. But you know, just a comment on those boats going out to sea here. There's it is a disaster really waiting to happen, and it's great to see so many recreational boats coming in. I think the other day there was about 40 odd, and some actually got caught just recently in a storm there when the weather cut up, and it took over 6 hours for someone to get back in, and they got on behind one of the local fishing trawlers and sort of tucked in behind that. So the weather can change really badly here, but some of them are big boats, but some of them are pretty small too. So.
Last time I looked, we didn't have any amphibious St. John's ambulance service.
Okay.
a lot of those boats turn around quick. But we're down there watching it every day. These boats are in and out in a day. They're back again and out, in and out. It must cover some ground. That's about the only thing that those boats out there have got, is the fact that
Speed.
Booty's boats are there and back and so on.
So many big boats.
Jackson's, does Jackson? I have, feeling that the Queenstown must have for them.
Kelly's used to have a person down there.
Can I please have a mover and a seconder for the Lagoma report, please? Indy. Great. Thank you. Sure, again. General business. Any general business? Motion that I move that we go into public. Be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely agenda 11. Welcome back. Just to let you know that we've finished the public excluded. Items 11 and 12 have been completed. The meeting is now closed. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the Operations Committee meeting on August, 19th of August, 2025. Have we got any apologies apart from Francis? Good hi. No, mover?
Happy to move. Apology be accepted from Francois.
Any declarations of interest?
Yep, I'll declare please on Franz Joseph Stage 1, Franz Joseph Stage 2 and Greymouth. Because of my son being a
With a public forum, no petitions or deputations today. We'll go straight to the confirmation of the minutes. Take it everybody to the minutes. Last meeting, which is on the 22nd of July. We've got someone read the minutes. Chris. Second, Andy. Anything coming from the minutes? Okay. Move on to the actions list. Quite a few actions lists on the actions list. One's ongoing, follow the paper procedure of the rating district AGM. Number 2, provide a register of known orphan efforts still ongoing. 3 is ongoing staff review provisions of the TTP, gaining regarding subdivisions, engage with registry council. 4, raise with insurers the option of insuring rating district assets to a lower sum, that's ongoing. Number 5 is ongoing, arrange for a workshop, council's insurer, NEMA of West Coast Regional Council. Number 6, investigate NZTA retrospective consent on the spur of the north side of the Wanganui River. No comments. Number 7, investigate the depth of the toe of Rip Rock. Is under direct attack from the Road Terrific. Move on. Number 8, investigate the legal status of the Organs Island land transfer. There's a paper coming up for that. Number 9, no update, prepare a paper on consent requirements for rating district stop banks. Grandfather rights. Okay. Number 10, West Coast Emergency Management connect with Bull Electricity, WCEM. Emergency Management. Connect with Bull Electricity and the McIntyre Transport regarding access to fuel emergencies. It's ongoing.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yes, it is ongoing. My meeting was postponed.
Yeah. Number 11, Council Chair, follow up Kiwi Rail. Must be.
Yeah. That's still ongoing. We're actually taking up the next step because we haven't had much luck there. Was to commission a tonal flood study, and that's well underway. Probably come to us. That'll.
Yeah. So we're going to move it to the actions list.
Mr. Chair, just before you go on, a couple of things I want to make here. First action here, so last election, it's a follow-up item from the Wanganui Rating District AGM, where we intended to bring back a paper to you, to the Ops Committee, explaining the position of the rating district on the proposal to advance a capital project. And I think you're all well aware that the rating district elected not to take that opportunity up. So we'll bring that back to you, but what I also wanted to do was explain what the implications are for council as part of that. Now, what I heard this morning in the workshop on the rating district review is that that may well be covered in the scope of that piece of work. Okay, so there's a kind of parallel tasks going on there. So I'm wondering if I can rephrase that action just to fully report back to you on what the rating district decision was with regard to that capital proposal, and then we leave the bit about the implications for the district review piece of work.
That's a good idea.
And it'll help clean that action out.
Yep.
The other one I wanted to raise with you too is I know there's a number of no update provided in the second log here. You've got to get used to that. We're just sort of moving between Gavin through Wayne and now into it's going to take a little while to come up to speed and get these actions and train. We are committed to responding to them. It's we'll start turning over at the moment.
That one there, that number 5, number 6, about the NZTA retrospective consent on the speed, did we see a paper on that?
No, I don't think.
Where you have come, sorry.
There was a, retrospective.
Consent, I mean, that's discussed in one of the previous meetings, wasn't it? Had a paper on it, anyway. No,
On item number 8, the transfer of the land at Organs Island, I just wondered, there was a lease renewal coming up, and I just be interested to know if the lease renewal was rolled over or it
Thanks, councillor Cole. I wonder if we could cover that in the public excluded paper.
okay. Remove it for the actions list. All right. Move on to the monthly catch-up report.
Against.
Cheers, report this week.
Item 8.1.
8.1, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, councillors. Again, with Michael coming on board only last week, we feel appropriate to throw him under the bridge straight away. So I'll speak to this one. Another item news today, and then you'll gradually see Michael come forward to your seat over the next couple of months or so as he comes up to speed with where things are at. So to the monthly catchment report, 3 key points I want to speak to here. The first one is in the operating and maintenance space. A number of key tasks completed over the month, including some repairs to the knife gate at Cobden, following some storm damage last month. And then the work that's been ongoing on the Taramaka scheme, the stop bank raise and 2 repairs to the riprap, that's all been completed, that work. So we've had a pretty good month on wrapping some physical work up. Staff time is still focused on the asset management system project, which I'll move to now. Continuing good progress with the project, now approximately 80% complete. We have, however, had some resource constraints within our own team and with one of our vendors, which means there will be a delay in completing the project. I'm not quite sure by how long at the moment, but we will advise you what that delay is likely to be and the revised due date for completion. That's had no impact on the work that's been done on our asset revaluations for the annual report. And also in the meantime, staff have carried on with the very good inventory and condition inspection side of things. It's progressing well and it's on track to be complete by the end of this month as scheduled. So any questions on either of those 2 items before I move on?
I was just wondering, is the knife gate the best option?
It's a reasonable question. It's not one I can answer right here and now.
Well, it's just, you know, most of them have a
Straight gate.
something like that. I mean, that'll work itself, and actually have to go back and lift it out each time.
It's a question I can ask the area engineer concerned.
Can we take that as an action, please, Mel, and we'll come back with an answer?
I think through the chair, the reason that one is that's so that the sea doesn't fill it up with gravel. And as you can see, there's a gravel build up in there already. So this is subject to from the sea. and the gravel would pipe up. So that's the idea of having the knife gate. So when there is a major flood, which is not very often, that knife gate can be removed by those two holes on the top and lifted out so that the emergency flow can flow out. I believe that's the reason.
Surely if it's a flapper valve, they won't shut when the gravel's coming in it.
Well, it was damaged through, that's been quite badly damaged through the sea action, washing up rocks and heavy stumps and things against it. So those guides and that gate were damaged. So it's under pretty big force. So I don't know that a flap valve, it might get jammed open or
Shut.
but anyway, that's so I think that's the reasoning behind that when it was installed.
With the chair, just wonder if a similar thing down each side, like a piano hinge from top to bottom, would be a lot stronger than individual pins, gudgeons and stuff.
They're actually through the chair. They're actually guides that plate fits down through. So they sliding ones. So there's a fair bit of force on those with the welds.
Answers an interest in it.
No conflict.
Equipped in Belleville. Right, move on. Tom, I was just looking at the picture there, looks like they've done a good job at doing it here.
That's great, yeah.
Yep. Good to see it done.
One question was, obviously they're gonna fill that up with rock, are they? Is that, you see, it's just.
Not sure whether that's a work in progress at that point or whether that's is at the.
Just sort of might have been ongoing with the money or also top up.
Okay, moving through into the capital projects space, and we'll start with Westport and hand over to Peter Blackwood. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Tom. Kia ora koutou. There's quite a lot happened in the last month, and I won't take too long, but I'll go into my general. There's favourable progress being made on the design of the flood mitigation works. It's almost a frenetic pace. Very good progress has been made on the Carter's Beach design and consultation. I'm going to talk about that more later in my report. And also several reports have been completed on important aspects of the Lower Buller Stockbank construction. Now, the detailed Gantt chart program is being used to monitor progress. And yeah, I do have to report a couple of things here. It's already shown an issue with our planning investigation leading to the resource consent application for the combined consent for Upper Buller and Carter's. We've talked about this many times, how they're sort of dependent on each other, sort of have to go hand in hand. You can't shut out water going through the town and let it go unimpeded to Carter's. And I just make a note here that, I'll make a note later on. Anyway, we have decided to push out the date on our Gantt chart for submittal of the resource consent to the 21st of November. That's almost 2 months. But we want to have a quality resource consent prepared. We don't want to have a frenetic resource consent prepared. We want to have a quality consultation that everyone who's involved is due. And who knows, yet we may be able to get a limited notified, but that's, of course, someone else's decision. But we want to do this really well. So the value of the Gantt chart has been to assess that. Had a good think about that, me and my colleagues. And so we are going to push that out. Okay, Buller River Upstream State Highway 67 bridge. So we've put out that request for quotations for the planning investigation, planning advice. And we've changed the date that closes because we've changed the date of deliverables. We've changed the date that closes from 20th of August to the 1st of September. So it's about a week and a half later. We want to get some good proposals. Okay, I'll go on to the floating lagoon. So we've been discussing viable options with WSP for the Tallies Bund. Remembering that we've already bought the portable barriers for the first 70 metres. They've been procured. We've done some optioneering, need to do some more optioneering on this. At this point in time, we are not ruling out retaining the bund. It's a very, very careful geotechnical design with a lot of geotechnical investigations. But that's where we are there. And we expect to have the factual report on all the geotechnical investigations soon. Of course, one of the things we added on here was more interior boreholes. That was so we could see what was the substance geotechnically of the land on the landward side of the proposed flood walls or stop banks. Where the proposed stop banks are, some of it's reclaimed, so you need to know what's happening on the landward side, because that is very, very important for assessing what future developments might happen within that zone. And one day we'll be having a workshop on that to assess how we regulate developments next to the stop banks to ensure everyone is safe. Okay. The peer review of the detailed site investigation, the DSI and leachate has been completed. And I'll just note a couple of conclusions. I don't want to say too much about this because this is the contamination from X-use and railways, what have you. But the peer reviewer says, we consider the DSI investigation achieves the intended objective stated, bullet point 1, to evaluate if contaminants of concern are present at the site and ultimately assess whether they pose an unacceptable risk to human health or the environment, for example, asbestos. And second one, provide an assessment against regulatory compliance and potential surplus soil waste classification. So we can move ahead with that now. And we've had several meetings recently with Davis Ogilvy, the designers, including taking account of a stormwater rationalisation work from Buller District Council and how that interacts with the stop banks. And we've got that one covered, we think, pretty well. Right. Avery's, of course, is paused. The tender was let for both the construction and the culvert. I'm getting some feedback. Can you hear me okay? I'm just making sure.
You're good, Peter. Thanks. You're all good.
Thanks. So we've resolved any geotechnical questions. We have about 12 questions on a request for information from the resource consent processes, BTW. And we think we can handle all of those. We had a really, really good meeting with the Tangata Whenua. As always, my plane did not get back to Whakatane, and so I did that meeting from a hotel room in Auckland at 8:30 in the morning. But because one of the key people, Pip Lynch, was in Scotland, and it was a very, very good working together really well. And as a team working together really well, I believe we will succeed on that front. Both parties will succeed in respect of each other. And so we all have, I've said that all parties have a good appreciation of important matters. Okay. Traffic management, drainage and tree removal have all been discussed ad infinitum. ad infinitum with Bulla District Council, and they're good. Lower Bulla. The geotech investigations is close to completion. We've also had what we call a PSI, preliminary site investigation, to confirm the contaminated land status and risks associating with disturbing it. Just to note, there are risks to site workers during development are considered to be moderate to high. It recommends further investigations for risk management purposes. But construction of this is planned for the 26-27 year, though we may be able to do a wee bit this financial year, just downstream of the bridge. So it's important to get ahead of the ball, and this is looking okay on our Gantt chart. There is an arch site. And so we're applying for that archaeological authority. Okay. North End Stop Bank and Upper and Lower Arawati Stop Bank. I wasn't going to talk much about them, but I'm going to talk about Carter's Beach. So we've had a I think it was a very successful meeting at Carter's Beach. There were about 100 people there. There was one person who claimed it was fake advertising and that Carter's Beach did not flood in 2021, despite me putting up maps showing the area that did flood. So we've now gone to Bulla and we've identified for a start 3 houses that did flood with water inside them, which had to be dealt with. That was in a 60-year flood. These are houses at Carter's Beach and Shattuck Drive, and also on the road to the seal colony, which would all those houses would be protected by this proposed stop bank. We also went and talked to properties in between, which are hard to protect. There's 5 or 6 of them from the bridge down, and we've got solutions for at least 3 of those, and we're progressing those in discussions. Yeah, I think that's probably, the proposal's been received for scoping the geotech, and that started. We've already had a site walkover. And we're proposing to do some ground penetrating radar to optimize where we might do some boreholes. Once we progress that and get through that, then we'll consider whether to start the geotech investigations on Snodgrass. So I think that I'm happy for any questions. Thank you.
Questions, Peter?
Oh, I got a couple, but I think I'm probably more suited to publicly excluded because it's more on the process, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'll pop it over.
Okay, so we recommendations to committee is to receive the report. We've got a mover.
There you go there. So that's yes, sorry. Just going to put other items in that Kevin was supposed to talk to. I'll bring Scott in shortly and for these item to talk about the PDF shovel-ready projects in the flood resilience projects. But I did want to talk to you briefly about future flood resilience projects, namely tranches 2 and 3. So tranche 2, as you're well aware, we've put applications in for gradient stages 2, 4 and 5 and hoping stage 3. We're still waiting to hear on whether those applications have been successful or not. That's rolling on. We made the out that we were due to hear. And well, we thought we were going to hear a number of months ago, and we're still waiting. So no further movement on either of those.
Can I just make the comment? So that's not just us; it's the whole country and the whole sector are waiting on that from decisions with government. But so too, and while Chris Blackwood's still here, so too is Bulla District Council, because they're in values 2.0 for some government contribution towards their stormwater scheme. And Peter, would you be able to comment on dependencies and timing issues with that regarding our progress at all?
Well, the particular two parts of this, obviously they're interrelated, and where there's a big drain, then we're designing big culverts to meet the 100-year stormwater. But there are two areas of concern. One is a drain upstream of the State Highway 67 bridge, and that's definitely going to be a showstopper. I don't know what you do there. Do you construct everything except for that section? But that will leave someone will have to put their finger in the stop bank to stop that. It'd be quite a big bit. And then there's another one downstream of the State Highway 67 bridge. So I'm not thinking so much Rawati. And as I said, we've had the discussion to try and resolve it, and I think we've resolved it on the north end, or floating lagoon stop bank. But there are two areas of concern on the Buller, which could delay things.
Thanks, Peter. So Buller District Council are well aware of the implications and timing, of needing to progress their stormwater designs, let alone build in conjunction with the flood banks. And there is a risk on the risk register for this project around having to, in the worst case scenario, slow down or stop our progress awaiting Buller's stormwater solutions at those critical points. I just want to also add, please, councillors, that and look, it gets talked about again and again and again. At the moment, the town of Westport has an internal stormwater problem, and that the stormwater isn't getting away from the town, and hence floods, and causes problems in the town. Because it's not getting out of the town at the moment through overland paths into the Buller, our flood banks will not cause a bathtub effect because it's not getting away anyway, right? What needs to happen is the stormwater design, when they upgrade all those culverts, and they're probably going to jump 2 culvert sizes, in many cases, up to 600s, 900s, 1200s, and any pumping that will take the water to our flood banks, and that then needs to cross our flood banks either by gravity or by pumping, and that's the issue that needs to be solved. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just endorse exactly what Daryl said. That is so true. Does need to be solved. And indeed, I did not talk about the pump stations they need to put in as well. They do need to do significant work to get the water to the stop banks and to get it past the stop banks. Yeah.
But that's exactly the scenario that Graham faced when they solved it. It's not insurmountable. The wall is away.
And a good example.
But
John, you got Peter. The last one I wanted to touch on is a really interesting one over the last month. A possible third tranche of flood resilience projects has been proposed by ministers, and of course, call for submissions has been made. So, as per usual, these things are really short notice. Our submission is due with Te Ure Kahiko by the end of the month, and then they'll have a month to work through it before it goes to ministers at the end of September. So limited time for engagement with rating districts and with yourselves, which is not to say that it won't happen, but we're currently in the process of compiling a list in the format required by Te Ure Kahiko and Kānoa. And then once we've got that together and we've got some agreement internally on it, we'll be in a better position to socialise that with you.
So, councillors, just a reminder for those of you that kind of know or new news, but myself and the Chief Executive of Horizons Regional Council, Mike McCartney, are the CEO sponsors of all things river engineering in the whole regional sector nationally and are dealing with officials and things in Wellington. And that's on before the deluge 2.0, but also a possible 3.0, and also a long-term pipeline of work going out, 10 plus years. That's dealing with officials in Wellington and ultimately with the Regional Development Minister, Minister Jones. So just I want councillors to note that some of my time and effort is on behalf of the regional sector and representing our interests and trying to land some of that, those opportunities for the coast, but also for the wider sector. There's a meeting which I've been asked to go to in September as well on some of this to try and land all of these matters. What's good for the regional sector is good for the West Coast. This is being looked upon by government and officials as a regional sector a solution, not just an individual council solution, and how we manoeuvre on all of this. And there's a number of other initiatives going on. So there's before the deluge work with the increase in flood protection, but there's also another piece of work around flood warning preparedness, rain gauges, all that sort of thing. And we're in that discussion with the prospect of a government investment, potentially without local share, into increased flood warning networks around the country and indeed on the coast. Okay, so that's another initiative. And of course, the third initiative is the whole asset management, condition assessment and maintenance, good maintenance of the banks through that nationally consistent approach that we've signed up to that's driving our work. So there's a lot of activity nationally with government going on in this space, and it's really good to be very connected to it on behalf of the regional sector. Thanks.
So worth adding that having Daryl in that leadership role along with Mike McCartney at that regional sector leadership level is really helpful for us as a region in communicating what will be coming up and giving us a bit of a heads up and advance warning on what we need to be doing to prepare ourselves. The only other thing I'll add to this one is the criterion for eligible projects is a little bit more relaxed than it has been for tranches 1 and 2. So the contracts have been quite short term, 2 to 3 years, and you need to be shovel ready, i.e. have concepts and consents in place to be eligible. This next tranche that's proposed, those contracts are over a longer term, up to 5 years, and they don't have to be shovel ready with consents in place to be eligible. So that's positive for us. Gives us a bit more time to do the homework with the rating districts and get better prepared before we put a submission in proper.
And can I just add that? And one of the things we're strongly lobbying for from a whole sector up into government is a government funding line. And Andy, Councillor Campbell, you've commented on this several times around a government funding line around ongoing maintenance rather than just capital for any of the schemes. So we're lobbying hard to try and get a funding line in each of the regions on that.
That's with you, Mr. Chair, today. Okay.
The recommendation of the committee to receive the report. We're going to move it for that.
Okay, move.
Peter, seconded Chris. Okay.
All right.
All those in favour? Aye.
Number 2, the Waiho River reports.
You want a break, Blake?
It's lunch there.
This one's a short one. We can get this one right away and then break and then come back to project status reports after that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
8.2 Waiho River reports. For the Executive Operations Committee, future management of the Waiho River, Technical Advisory Group. So Waiho Memorial
methodological modelling, stage 1 assessment of Tartary revulsion. The recommendation, it is recommended that committee resolve to receive the report, formally accept the reports of the future management of the Waiho River from the Waiho Tag Group 2023 and the Waiho River morphological modelling, stage 1 assessment of Tartary revulsion from NIWA, June 2025. 3. Note that the staff will make both reports publicly available on the natural hazards page of the council website and formally disclose the reports to the Western District Council in accordance with the RMA, the Goima and Natural Hazard Information Regulations summarised in the legal section below. So I take it that everybody's looked at these reports. I have to admit they're pretty intense.
Pretty scary too.
He's scary, yeah.
2 years behind that.
Makes the doorstop a bit bigger now for all the ones on Friends.
I'm more than happy to move that recommendation. Yep.
Chris? Yeah.
All those in favour?
I'll just comment that they're a very important piece of work, and they are actually coming out that they are proven to be pretty exact.
Accurate.
Accurately. So they're quite sobering reports, but I think we have actually passed that on to the Franz Joseph people and Western District Council. So I think that comes out in public now.
Just a quick comment from me. I mean, this is really a procedural matter. In an ideal world, we'd have done this with future management for the Waiho report back in 2023. That didn't happen. The report is already up on our website. So we're travelling back to that one. There to help with the pronunciation so support July this month, and we'll socialise that with you, Western District Council, and the district down in Friends there. So just tidying up a loose end here.
Okay, well, with that, we'll break for lunch. So we'll give it half an hour. Happy for everybody? The people online there? Come back in half an hour. That'll make it at 10 to 1.
Great, see you then.
Yeah, dish on bell.
All right, we're good to go. Move on to number 9. 9.1. Franz Joseph Stage 1 operations. Scott's on board.
He's just come on. Yeah.
You right there, Scott? We're ready to go, mate. When you're ready, the recommendation for 9.1, the recommendation the committee resolved to receive the report.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. So Franz Joseph Stage 1. Sorry, I missed that. If that's the first one we're going to.
Yeah, sure. You're good,
yeah.
mate.
Yeah, cool. So we had a very good meeting with the joint committee earlier on, and in the month, and we've gone through a number of items in the project. It was good to get some clarity around some items, particularly things that we've closed out is the height issues on the link bank that's been resolved. We've also resolved the surplus rock and how we're dealing with that. And probably the most important one here is that we've agreed a process and a way forward with NZTA around where their scope's at and agreements with the joint committee that will not form part of the project going forward. So that just leaves some paperwork to tidy up on those aspects and getting to the point where we have one piece of work outstanding, which will be the stormwater culvert. So we've been working through that. We had the initial design and some commentary back on that. That's gone back to the designer and I believe we've now got the finalised report from Tetra Tech Coffee with the proposed design. We are presenting that to Peter Blackwood for his review, noting that we don't want any weak points in the bank So once we get his review, we'll then pass that on to the contractor for pricing. And then that will be the last element of the project to close out. We do have some pricing on a pump option, so we'll have that as a comparison with the stormwater outlet. Basically, once that's done and we instruct those works, we'll be then able to issue PC, and then that'll trigger that handover operation to the operations team.
Any questions for Scott on that one? Joseph?
Just one thing I think I'll add here, you may or may not be aware, but with that contract, there is no defects liability period, and there's no retentions being withheld either, so we're quite keen to not issue the practical completion certificate until we've got everything squared away with the contract. And that's contributing to the length of time it's taking for us to close that one out.
The recommendations to receive the report. We've got a move for the report. Chris? Second, Andy? Second, favour? Move on to 9.2. Franchise Stage 2 Operations Committee Project. The recommendation is to receive the report and review the report, provide any feedback or queries via the West Coast Regional Council Capital Program Manager. Take everybody's read it. See Scott.
So obviously the lined bank section has been completed on the rubbish dump stop bank, and work has progressed really well on the unlined section, with the contractor placing around 18,000 tonnes to date. It's been a massive effort. It's exceeded our sort of expectations on what they were doing there, but they've had a good clean run at that, where they're probably expected to be completed in the sort of next 3 weeks, where their program was probably another month beyond that as well. So it's gone really well, and obviously weather dependent, but that has been really good progress in that section. With Milton, sorry.
Is there any questions, anyone, for that part of it? Okay, move on, Scott.
Yeah, with Milton's, we've completed obviously the updated design elements there, and drafting the procurement plan to release that tender out to market. Tom, do you have any further update on that?
So the procurement plan sitting with me for review. Bring that to the next council meeting 4 weeks' time for your approval.
With the next part, which is the Havels Wall extension, the vote at the joint committee was to hold on that, and to look at taking that back to ministers in terms of some of the funding. So from a project perspective, that's all on hold at this stage. There was some questions around potentially placing some rock at the end of Havels in the short term. We haven't looked at any further options until we get some direction to move that part of the project forward. The other part is NZTA, which is not progressing. NZTA don't have unallowed access to the funding through the So that's kind of where we're at from a project perspective, but what is happening on site is progressed really well, and we hope that once we get the procurement plan signed off and out to market, that we believe we'll get good feedback back from the market, and then we can progress with that section as well.
Yeah.
Just a thing on the Havels Wall extension. My recollection on it, the extension was rejected by the community. The proviso was we can go back to the minister and try all sorts of things to.
Yeah.
The rejection.
I just said hold, as in that could be an option, that it could go ahead if the money comes through from a different aspect. So yeah, so if ministers came back and said, hey, we'll fund it all, then that's a great way, isn't it? Like then you'd carry that
Can I
work out.
just come in? Sorry, Scott, can I just come here and make some comments, right? So first thing to note, for this set of minutes is the joint committee declined to fund the local share for Havil's Wall extension. So that's the first thing to really lock in.
That's the first.
Okay. The second thing that is my understanding is that we will explore any other options that doesn't involve the joint committee having to fund the local share for the extension. That's the second thing. The third thing that we're going to do is we will explore other more short-term channel training options, etc., to see if there's more temporary sort of sacrificial bun type measures, etc., channel training down there to see if that might provide some temporary relief. But of course, that would have to be funded by the scheme as its channel maintenance, etc. So I'm just seeking all councillors' agreeance to those three things, which is my clear recollection of what was decided.
Yeah, I agree with Darryl on that. That's what the joint committee members were unhappy with, and I believe that, and I spoke to Minister Jones about that at the time, that I thought it was unfair that the locals should fund what is actually more a national problem. And so that's it. But however, in saying that, I believe that even though the Havil's Wall extension will only have a limited lifespan, it's pretty essential that actually carries on, or the river's diverted or the likes. Otherwise, you'll lose the oxidation ponds, and potentially, looking at that morphological report, it could actually come in and cut straight down with a larger effect. So the line needs to be held there to some extent. But the problem is, until the south side is let go, which in the longer term 10-year plan, which is now probably 8 years or 8.5 years or something, until that's actually sorted, you run the risk of losing the other side. So in my opinion, there needs to be some form of either the extension of the Havel Wall or some channel training or that, because when you read the geological, we've all seen it, there's major issues for Franz Joseph. So this council will have to address that situation, and I think the approach is to the ministers, because it's only 1.12, I think, from the local share thereabouts, and it's chicken feed really for the amount of money to actually put some interim measures in place, and I think that's government or Western District or someone should front up.
Through the chair, yes, that's my recollection too. As people said to me down there, the sewage pond is a Western responsibility for the town. People on the south side who looked as though they were going to be lumbered with the cost. Well, they're on septic tanks, that the sewage pond doesn't affect them. That's why they objected to it, because the problem essentially is the Westlands problem. Now, they are part of the community down there, and they're front-footing the southern protections. So I think the debate was very clear and the direction from them. So where the ball's in the Westlands got the leadership on this, the ball's in their court, where they take that.
I think from what I was taking out of it was the locals wondering why they've got to pay such a big share, for most of the toilets are fed by tourists. Yeah. And they were going on about the tax, international visibility. International visibility. So yeah. And I think that's the avenue that they really want to take, and that's the avenue we as a council should be pushing as well, because it is quite unfair. It's a lot of money for such a short time, and the rest of the West Coast and the rest of the South Island are funded through that road going through there, through those tourists. And a lot of the locals down there don't make a lot of money out of it.
I really question the opportunity to get any more tourism tax since the sum 1.6 went into the Tocha Bridge. And it's the same territory, same turf. So best of luck there for the local Westland, but priority.
I think that from my point of view, the one thing that we can do in the interim down there, and Darryl touched on this already, is we've presented them with a solution, which came with a fairly hefty price tag. We just need to give them a bit more certainty about what was involved in our decision making, our options analysis. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, what were the other options considered? How much were they going to cost, and how feasible are they? And provide that information to them, which will their positioning on the extension itself, the higher cost proposal.
The problem is, Tom, through the chair, time is of the essence, because whilst we're in a calm period at the moment, I just can't see this happening for the rest of the year, or maybe it will, but we'll pay for it sooner or later. We've had pretty calm weather recent times.
Springs are coming.
Yeah, equinoctial winds.
Any more comments on that one? The recommendation is to someone to move the recommendation.
Yeah.
Peter Ewan, second Andy. 9.3 Hokitika River Walls Operation Committee Project Status Report. Recommended for funding to drive to receive the report. You again, Scott, is it?
Yep. So stage 1B, so on the north side of the bridge, we undertook some additional headwall works to some of the stormwater outlets, just where there was some oversteepening of the quarry rubble. So that's now been fixed along with the defects work to the retaining walls. So that's now all been completed and recompacted in behind. So that's now complete. That finalises everything in relation to stage 1B. Stage 3, we have progressed with a procurement plan for the consultants and going back out to the market for the civil engineering. And that is currently out in the market. Once that's back, we'll be then able to undertake the RFP analysis and make a recommendation for appointment of the civil engineer to take that project forward.
Anybody got any questions for Scott on that one?
Happy to move.
Move it. Please, happy to move it and receive the report. Second, Mark McIntyre. All in favour? All right. Graham Operations Committee Project Status Report for July. Recommendation is to receive the report. Page 285.
Well, so at Grey, probably the main progress that we're making there is around doing the testing for the site for WMS. Those works have been conducted. There's been some meetings held with GDC, WMS, and West Coast Regional Council just around clarity around the project itself. But the testing and the report is due mid-September, as we reported last month. So until we have that report, that will give us an idea around any contaminations on the site, etc., and then potentially be able to reduce the contingency allowance there. There's still some further discussions around seepage modelling that need to be undertaken with the operations team. However, we're not really progressing that until we've closed out the contamination issue, or if there is an issue.
Any questions for Scott? The Graham Apple flood walls?
So Scott's not aware of this. I don't think, but I sent you guys a an update on the situation with Western Mineral Sands the other night. I think the positive thing that's coming out of that conversation is we're a lot more closely connected with the GDC and their role in approving a license to occupy for the site. And so it's good to be on the same page and working collaboratively with them on this proposal.
Right, right, thanks, Tom. We got a mover for that report? Peter moves it, seconded Chris, all those in favour? Right. Next one is we're gonna move into general business. Any general business on all that? Right, okay, so we'll move into public excluded. The following reasons is costs and all those to it. Oh, you stop recording?
It's in the moving second, but
Move in second, Pete. Mark moves it, seconded Chris Cole. Okay. Hello, welcome back everybody to the public part of the meeting. We're going to declare the meeting closed at 2:20 and thank you all for your attention.
Thanks. See you, Chantal. See you.
Yeah.
Scott.